I want to just tell you personally, not just as General Officer of the United States Army, but just as a tax-paying American dude, I want to thank you for your service. I really mean that. You know, here tonight we're marking the 64th year that members of the Golden Acorn Division have come together to enjoy each other's company and to celebrate their distinguished accomplishments in the Second World War. I'm truly honored to rub shoulders with such giants here, and I can relate to you a little bit. I love the greatest generation. My father, who's my personal hero, he's a retired Army officer, veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He rests at Arlington now. But I will tell you, I thank God I was raised with the traditional values and the work ethic of the greatest generation. I have a hard time relating to a generation. Back then they talked about it more. It's not kind of a thing with our generation. I don't know if I'm the, I guess some people would call me the tail end of the baby boomers. I've even heard the X or the Y or even the selfish me generation. But I would tell you this, I've commanded thousands in the Nintendo generation. It used to be kind of a pejorative expression, but I've come to learn that this Nintendo generation is smart, they're inquisitive, they understand the pivotal role that they play in the war on terrorism and our national security. And I can guarantee that some of them understand that role and the importance of that much better than those who wear suits sometimes inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C. And by the way, this Marine NCO confirmed that they're pretty good marksmen too. So I'm all about the Nintendo generation. You know, the 87th Infantry Division was a remarkable unit that played a key role in our Allies' victory in Europe. I wish I could remember, but I'm getting old too, and have been several IEDs, so the short-term memory goes a little bit. But activated in December 1942, trained for 2 years, and then arrived on the continent on 3 December 1944, and 10 days later, its first combat on 13 December 1944, and then spent 134 days in direct combat and engaged in contact with the enemy. Suffered 1,199 killed in action, 4,110 wounded, 306 missing, 30 captured, for a total of 5,555 battlefield casualties. That's only 134 days. Medal of Honors, there were one of them. There were 3 Distinguished Service Crosses, 13 Legions of Merit, 391 Silver Stars, and 847 Bronze Stars. All awarded in 134 days of combat. That's absolutely remarkable. What a distinguished division. It was composed of a large part of just young men, just out of high school. The Golden Acorn infantrymen helped push back the German offensive after the Allied landings at Normandy. They engaged the Germans first in Aachen, France, and then again in the Saar, the Battle of the Bulge, and the Ardennes. What the 87th Infantry Division and many of you here tonight accomplished in such a short period of activation is absolutely remarkable. Events like this one are so important in maintaining our esprit de corps, our heritage, our legacy, and our camaraderie as infantrymen and as soldiers. Even though many, many years have passed now since the 87th Infantry Division last saw action, the bonds you forged have remained strong, and I know that all the veterans here, although long past their active duty time, are still soldiers at heart. It's truly inspiring for those of us who are still serving to see you here tonight. You know, after almost 3 decades myself as an infantryman, I can say that my own experiences in hostile fire zone, such as an airborne company XO in Honduras along the Nicaraguan border, Ranger Rifle Platoon Leader in the combat parachute assault over the skies of Rio Hato Airfield to destroy elements of Panama's defense force, in the villages and ghettos of Haiti, later as an infantry battalion commander, airborne infantry battalion commander, and a Ranger battalion commander crushing the Iraqi Republican Guard and Saddam Bedouin on those distant battlefields of a Nasiriyah, a Samawa, a Diwania, Al-Hilla, Al-Ramadi, Habaniya, Fallujah, in the southeast district of Baghdad, we call the Dora. Then systematically destroying the Al-Qaeda networks of the Mujahideen in the mean streets of Mosul, Tal Afar, and Tikrit in northern Iraq. Then chasing isolating, and then killing the Taliban in the bloody valleys of the Korangal, Kamdesh, through the hostile villages and lethal Highway 1 of Wardak, Logar, Ghazni provinces, home to the Jalrez, Tangi, and Nurk valleys. Through all those hellish places, it was my honor and privilege to command American soldiers in battle. And you should be proud to know that I have never, not one time, ever seen an American cower or even take one step back or relinquish 1 inch of ground purchased at the high cost of American blood. Not once. Always, his instinctive reaction was to return fire, wade into the enemy, and prosecute the attack by closing with and destroying him. It's been my privilege to walk with giants, the noblest figures I've ever seen. The noblest figures, I believe, in all of mankind. And it had nothing to do with the dignity of their birth, their earning potential, their station in life. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with their character, courage under fire, and their quiet, humble professionalism. I'd like to relate a story to you that just kind of, to me, demonstrates the nobility of these soldiers it was my privilege to lead. As I told you before, I was a rifle platoon leader in 2nd Ranger Battalion back in December of 1989. We were tasked to seize the airfield at Rio Hato. We had to conduct a low-level parachute assault. And we were to land, destroy the enemy's garrison around the airfield so that we could bring in heavy aircraft later on. But my platoon and another platoon from Bravo Company were tasked to move through 400 meters of triple canopy, very thick jungle that would lead us to the east wall of the military compound at Rio Hato. Breach into that compound and destroy the 7th Mato de Monte Elite Light Infantry Company there. Destroy that company, breach out of that compound, breach into the next one that was a neighboring compound to destroy the 6th Mechanized Expeditionary Company with their heavy weapons and their BTR-60Ps. Pretty tough mission. And as a young rifle platoon leader, it was kind of tough to hear that the plan was your platoon and 1st platoon on your left flank will probably be destroyed and become combat ineffective halfway through that objective. So at that phase line that leads into the next compound, we'll probably pass Charlie Company, 2nd Ranger Battalion, through you to complete the destruction of the enemy. Tactically, that makes sense. But when you know that when they tell you that platoon will be combat ineffective, it will be destroyed, those aren't just names and social security numbers. That's your buddy, that's your sergeant, these are real people. Well, I'm happy to report we didn't have to pass Charlie Company through us. We were able to complete the mission. And by the time the sun came up, it was able to radio back that all those objectives were secure. Although in our company we'd had 1 killed in action, my platoon 5 wounded due to enemy action. And back then we didn't have body armor. So gunshot wounds at very close range, these were horrific, horrendous wounds. The night before, the eve of battle, right down here in the airfield, before we took off to conduct that parachute assault, I did what I was paid to do as a Ranger Rifle Platoon leader. I'm schooled, I'm educated, I've been trained, and I'm going to give the operations order of my life to describe in detail what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And I gave that operations order and entertained the questions afterward, and I'll never forget Sergeant Swin. He was my, you're not supposed to have favorites, but you do. He and I kind of competed physically on the PT test and push-ups and pull-ups. It was always kind of a measuring contest, if you will. I just kind of, and we personally just got along. But he was going to be the lead team leader of the lead squad that night. I was going to be probably right behind that squad, maybe 15 meters behind him. But that young man was literally walking point for our nation that night. He asked a question. He said, sir, you described that we're going to leave the airfield. When we assemble and move off the airfield, we're going to have to move through about 400 meters of jungle. You said there may be an obstacle belt in there. He says, when we get to the obstacle belt, how will we know if it's booby-trapped or mined? I was the educated officer. I had the degree. I had the training. I was commissioned with responsibility. And at that point, I felt I had a responsibility. I ought to give him a pretty good answer to his question. But I had to look him in the eye and said, hey, Sergeant Swin, the absolute truth of the matter is, even under that canopy, with the booms and the bangs whiting out our night vision goggles, we're probably just going to end up stumbling into that obstacle. We may not even see it. And unfortunately, that might mean that the first way we know that it's booby-trapped is when it explodes. And without question, without complaint, he looked up to me and all he said was kind of our, the traditional expressions, "Who is, sir? I got it." He understood what his job would be that night. Well, we did, we assembled, we stumbled right into the wire. Thankfully, it didn't explode. But later on, Sergeant Swin was severely wounded in the assault. Months later, back at Fort Lewis, Washington, it was always kind of a joyous event when some of our wounded would trickle in either from Fort Sam Houston or from Walter Reed there at the McCord Air Force Base. And I met these Air Force medevac aircraft coming in there because I wanted to, for your family, wanted to see how your guys doing. Plus, we had captured enemy bayonets. I wanted to present him the one that we had kept aside for him. And as aircraft landed, it's taxiing, me and my platoon sergeant, other squad leaders excited to see Sergeant Swing because he had a gregarious personality. He was just fun to be around. We're kind of anxious. We knew he was going to have some wise-ass comments somewhere, so it was good that we're just anxious to see him. And the aircraft landed, the ramp goes down, and the medics are pulling these guys on gurneys, and they're coming down. And I just started to kind of jog over to him. I wanted to close that distance and see him. About halfway go there, I'm looking at him at a distance, and I can see he's contorting and he's writhing. He looks like he's in agony. I'm insane. I can't believe it. Why aren't they stopping to help him? Stop. Figure out what's hurting this young warrior. Fix it. All these thoughts as I'm getting up to him, and it dawned on me just as I got up to him, he wasn't writhing in agony. He was strapped on a gurney. And his arms were contained. He saw his platoon leader run across the tarmac. And this young man, with all the cares and concerns he had in that life, follow-on surgeries, horrible skin graft problems he's going to have, but he was concerned that, oh, my arm is caught. I may not be able to render a proper hand salute to my platoon leader. This kid's worrying about being able to salute his officer rather than other things he should have been thinking about. And just as I got there, he freed his hand and gave me a proper hand salute. Well, I returned that hand salute, but as you can imagine, I kind of feel it catching out. It was an unbelievable time when I realized the nobility of our soldiers and their courage and the sacrifice of what we call the Nintendo generation. Years later, I was an airborne infantry battalion commander on the outskirts of Asamawa, which is a town that straddles Highway 1, has 4 critical bridges over the Euphrates River. And the enemy garrison there had been about 1,400 mix of Iraqi Republican Guard and fanatic Saddam Fedayeen. My brigade commander was isolated from us. We only had intermittent communications because of the way the enemy situation was. His last instructions were 2nd Battalion, I was a battalion commander, would be the main effort. I need you to slam into the east side of Asamawa, seize those bridges, destroy the enemy force there so that our logistics convoys can get through and supply the 3rd Infantry Division that was making a race for Baghdad. Pretty critical mission. We had to destroy this enemy pocket of resistance. Once again, I sat down, got with my S3 and my fire support officer, and we're doing frantically. You'd like to be able to do it on a nice whiteboard, but we're really doing it with camouflage sticks on an MRE box. Sometimes those are the best plans. And I kind of wrote it up. Here's what we're going to do. Here's a timeline. Here's what we're going to execute. And before I put out the order, I'm kind of thinking I hadn't heard much from my sergeant major, and I loved him and trusted him. I just pulled up off the side. And I was a confident guy, but hey, sergeant major, this is going to be brutal. What do you think? I need some input before I personally needed my sergeant major. I just kind of wanted his north-south, approval of that. That was important to me. And then had absolutely hilarious man, big, huge black guy, says, "Sir, we trust you. The plan will work. It's all good. The boys will execute. And just want you. We trust you. Whatever you came up with, I'm sure it's great." We're gonna execute. Kind of another feeling of huge responsibility, thinking, wow, he trusted me, trusted the staff, trusted his leadership, and lo and behold, the next morning, as the sun came up, we slammed into Asamawa and we defeated the enemy force there in 4 days of fighting, and actually the first 5 hours of brutal, house to house, room to room, fighting, at some points the fighting became hand-to-hand. Yes, even in 2003, hand-to-hand combat in the streets of the Somalia. I'll never forget that. But at the culmination of that attack, we had one more thing. We had to cross the bridges out of Somalia, called the Bridges of Freedom. Huge enemy resistance on the far side. I had everyone dismount the vehicles. I didn't want to go because I thought the enemy may have wired the bridges for demolition. And we were putting a lot of artillery fire onto the urban sprawl. I was concerned at how there were civilians, and we know our enemy there. They're an irreligious people that mixed in with the civilian populace to use them as shields. So I was concerned about the effects of our fires, but I'm also concerned about my force, and I had to mercilessly and brutally prosecute the attack. As I went across the bridge, a young man from A Company, probably as far away from, somewhere on that table, about that, 5 or 6 meters away, screamed as he went down. He was gut shot just below his body armor. You all can imagine, belly wounds are pretty tough. And he screamed as he went down, and every fiber of my being wanted to call, time out, stop. Whoa, this is too hard. I wanted to grab him and cradle his head. There was a set of parents out there that had entrusted me with his care, and I kind of felt personal failure. That's what I wanted to do. But our eyes met, and I had to continue to mercilessly and brutally prosecute that assault to destroy the force that had done that to him. And I knew that the system, medical system, logistics system would tend to him. Kind of a difficult moment. We went on, we won that battle, and we moved on for all those other places and fought in Iraq for many years. A year later, we got back, and we had our festive ball at the end. It's a huge gala event to celebrate, remember our fallen, and to celebrate. We're in our mess blues, and the women always look beautiful at these things. It's a good event. As I looked across the room, I saw that face of that soldier, and he was much better when I saw him last time, but he was still recovering. I mean, belly wounds they're a nasty thing, and he was still moving kind of slow. But I walked up to him and, how are you doing? He said, sir, I'll tell you one thing. He says, that really hurt. I remember our eyes met as you crossed the bridge there, but he said, when I saw you, I saw the TAC, which is kind of a small, very quick-moving combat headquarters, if you will, with me and the radios and that type of stuff. When I saw you moving across there, he says, I knew we were going to win, and I wasn't worried about it. Here's a kid laying there, gut shot, in some godforsaken town in Iraq, not even sure if the people appreciate what we're doing, but he was serving his country, and all the cares and concerns, because in his mind he was probably thinking, today's the day, but he saw the unit crossing there, and he said, I knew we were going to win, and that was okay. Pretty noble figure from that Nintendo generation that I have grown to admire so much. And the torch is passed on. I think you'd be proud of him too. My son is a sergeant, E5, infantryman, currently assigned 1st Ranger Battalion, getting ready to go on his 4th combat deployment. And he will, unquestioning and uncomplaining, do his job of counterterrorism every single night, destroying the enemies and bringing to justice the enemies of our country. As you can tell, I'm a pretty proud officer, I'm pretty proud of our Army and soldiers and Marines in general. I'm sure that many of you have attended this reunion, this last reunion from what I understand, of the Golden Acorn Veterans, probably with some mixed emotions. But I hope the overriding emotion here tonight is pride. Pride in helping secure the freedom and liberty for people who had been oppressed. Pride in allowing those of us who have come after you to live in the freedoms that we've enjoyed for so many years. And pride in the legacy, the highly trained professional infantrymen who you are and were, and we as your successors. As you got a chance today to see Fort Benning, the home of the most effective, best prepared infantry and armored forces the world has ever seen. But we could not be where we are today. We would not be able to train and do what we do if it hadn't been for the example of professionalism that you old veterans dedicated yourself to in your generation. So veterans, thank you for your service, and and thank you for being here. In conflict, I will tell you, and I've heard this over the last few years, I'd like to also thank the unsung heroes of any conflict. I want to thank the family members who are here tonight. You supported these men's service, and of honoring their legacy is more important than you will ever know. Families are truly the strength behind our soldiers and behind our veterans. Thank you for everything you've done. And as your division motto says, thank you for being stalwart and strong.
Leadership in defending this great country of ours. I know everybody here truly thanks you from the bottom of our hearts. And thank you too for restoring at least my faith in the Nintendo generation. And I mean that seriously. That's wonderful. You enjoyed, I hope, the music before dinner from our wonderful quartet on the balcony. They are the MCOE Jazz Combo, and they too are in training here at Fort Benning. And I'd like to introduce them individually. We have Staff Sergeant Graves on the drums. He's from Washington, D.C. Sergeant Flores is on the guitar. He's from Austin, Texas. We have Sergeant Echeverria on the saxophone from Puerto Rico. And I'm sorry, I'm civilian. SPC is what? Specialist, I'm sorry, that makes sense. Specialist Wynn on bass from Virginia Beach. So let's have